name is Paul Ryan. I'm the CEO of AuxiliaGroup. We're delighted to welcome you all and thank you for taking the time out of your busy diaries to join us for this discussion around the project economy, something that's close to all our hearts. We have delighted to join us this morning is Jimmy Sheehan from Contracting Plus, who's going to lend his experience. Good morning, Jimmy. You're very welcome.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for asking me to come along.
Oh, great to have you. So just for people that don't know who Contracting Plus are, they're an award-winning accountancy and tax advisors firm working exclusively with professional contractors, business consultants, and the self-employed. So people like us. They have umbrella company solutions to allow compliant and easy payment solutions for those people that are new to contracting, and contingent professional workers, so independent contractors, both here in Ireland and in the UK. When you have your own company or you join an umbrella company, you need decent accountancy software so you can keep track of your money. These guys provide cloud accounting software, and their app have won awards for best use of technology for user experience. So they're trying to make life simple for independent contractors in terms of billing clients and also, I suppose, managing your tax affairs. They also offer expert advice, having been in this sector for over 20 years, working with independent professional contractors. And I suppose most importantly, the money that hits your bank is your money. They look after all your tax affairs and make sure that everything is sorted on that end. So you don't need to worry about tax bills or tax returns at the end of the year. It's all looked after by Jimmy and their excellent team in Contracting Plus. So Jimmy, you're very welcome. I wish I had met you many years ago when I started out my own consultancy career. But I know a lot of our contractors are working with you now. So you're very welcome, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
So to kick off, Jimmy, just maybe a bit of overview. Like, this is the 4th year that this piece of research has been done and sponsored by Contracting Plus and Trinity College Dublin, and a very important area of research. But tell me, why did you get involved in the first place, and how has this research evolved over the years?
Thanks, Paul. I suppose the reason we got involved in the first place is to highlight there's no study. There was never any study of what I call the solo self-employed professional in Ireland. You get a lot of stuff from the States. There was some stuff coming from the UK, but nobody was looking at the Irish market. So we approached Trinity College and asked them to look at that, to do it independently, because we wanted to make sure this wasn't seen as this is an advertisement for Contracting Plus and you're taking data and you're skewing it in a certain way to try and make it look attractive. So I think that's the most important piece. It's independent. We actually don't get access to the detail. We only get the aggregated data in order we can pull the report together. So I suppose that's the history of how we got involved, but also that people here on the call and people who might be joining AuxiliaGroup in the future will be saying, oh God, I need an accountant. And an accountant is very often a grudge purchase, and there's any number of accountants who will do your accounts, your tax return, and a lot of the time people don't really know what it is they should be looking for, so they base everything on price. And we wanted to move away from that market and be more than accountants. And our whole ethos is about supporting a different way of working, supporting independent working. And so it's not just accounts and tax, it's also your financial planning review to make sure that how much you're earning is working for you, mortgages when you need a mortgage as a self-employed person, anything to do with finance. And then also these support groups, where we bring communities together, and we also touch on the human skills. We touch on areas of loneliness and burnout with things like that with our clients. So I suppose in terms of coming back around to the question why we got involved, it is that piece of wanting to create something that people go, you know what, I'm a part of something. I'm a part of this group, because otherwise I feel like I'm on my own and I'm self-employed and I'm working for a client, and as soon as that job's finished I have to find a different client. So it's to bring everyone together and say, look, we as a whole, despite our skills, we are an industry in ourselves. So that's really, I think, the ethos behind the whole report.
Very good. Look, I think that's part of very much about what we do as well, Jimmy. So hence the alignment of and why we're collaborating together on these type of projects. So look, great to hear that, and well done on the success of the project economy research to date.
Thank you.
We've a broad range of attendees here, Jimmy, this morning on the webinar. So there's people I know that are contemplating a career in contracting and consulting. There's people that are relatively new to it, and there's people that have built their whole career around contracting, if you like. So there's a broad range. I think in the report there's something for everyone here and learning. So hopefully people will take a lot out of it as they go. The project economy link has been shared previously, so hope people have an opportunity to look at it. And we're just going to discuss some of the highlights within that, if you like, and happy to discuss other elements that people may want to cover later on. But it's it's there, and it's there for people to review. But I'm going to start, Jimmy, with happiness, which we all are craving for, if you like. And it's Thursday of a bank holiday week, short week. It's Thursday. We're over the hump. So I suppose there's a piece there around happiness and how happy our contractors are out there. Just give us some of the insights that you've learned from the survey in relation to happiness.
Yeah, I think a huge part of it is people want to come to work. I think it was about 3/4 of the people who were surveyed said they wanted to work like this. They choose to work like this. It's whereas a lot of people maybe in employment might be out of necessity. So this kind of gives you a choice. You go, I could be an employee somewhere, or I can work for myself. I can have job autonomy and flexibility. When the researchers looked at the job satisfaction versus equivalent employees, when I say equivalent employees, I mean in terms of skill set and education, and they got that data from different areas, the CSO and things like that. Contractors, freelancers, solo self-employed were happier. They have a better work-life balance. They talked about having better autonomy, and all of these things feed into how we feel. So I suppose that happiness index did increase. Does help also that the average earnings of somebody who's a project worker, and people here are we hear this all the time, project versus gig, and most of the people who filled out the survey are project workers, which means you're brought in to do a project for a client. That project could be a day a week for 2 years. It could be every day of the week for 6 months. It varies. There's no one size fits all, but the average earnings are 126,000 and 117 euros to be exact. When you look at the average annual earnings for employees with similar skill sets in the workplace, people who are doing this type of work earn 2.6 times more than an average employee. Now that's to be expected because you've got that risk piece. You've got to cover your pension if you get sick. There's not quite the same benefits, although in fairness to the social welfare system, over the last 10 years they've really tried to align self-employed and employed people. So I think that all feeds into the happiness piece.
Yeah, no, very good. I think your point there, Jimmy, just around people maybe choosing, and people are choosing this type of way rather than being in it by default, either through a redundancy or a career transition. And we get a lot of people coming to us considering the contracting world, and in some cases they stay with it and they go contracting. In other cases they're exploring it, but they're probably using it until they find their next job, if you like. And people just have that comfort of being employed, and we'll maybe talk about that later on in terms of the report. But I had an experience there recently where a guy came to us and he said, Paul, I'm in the big corporate. He's in his early 40s, and he had all the benefits, the 150 to 200 grand salary, share options, nice bonuses, company car, pension, VHI, etc. And but he said, I want to work in a different way to rather than being solely in that particular company. And he's made the jump and he's left those benefits behind, but I suppose he was just trying to get his anchor initial client before he made that. But he's only in his early 40s and he's chosen this way now. So it is interesting that I suppose that story of that individual aligns with how people now are choosing this rather than falling into it or ending up in there out of necessity, So no, it's good. It's good. For I suppose the other piece there, just on that, Jimmy. So we're saying we're happier than the employees. The satisfaction levels are high, which is good to hear. I don't have a poll here for our attendees this morning to see how happy they are, and I'm sure they're all smiling. But there is a piece here where the survey results are saying yes, we're happier than employees. However, we're not as happy as we were last year. You might just explore that for us a bit, and what your thoughts are on that and what's maybe driving that piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything I say here might be just a opinion, because I wouldn't have the detail. One of the interesting parts in that, although as a group, that the happiness is slightly down. When you break out male and female, the women are happier than men in every area studied. So they looked at rate of pay, job location, flexibility, work-life balance, the type of work, life in general, and then remote working. So they were the kind of the 7 key areas. And women scored higher than men in all of those areas. So, the women are very, very happy with how this is working out for them. And look, we see that. I think it's a great, I think you said to me, I won't jump ahead because you said you wanted to touch on earnings in a while, but we see some of that with the women as well, where it's a great opportunity for people to come back into the workforce after raising a family. We've taken on in our own business, we've taken on 3 people over the last number of years, 3 fantastic ladies. They've come back in on a project basis, and all 3 of them are actually now, part of us. Almost one has become an employee. So it's a really good stepping stone to get back into the workforce. I think anyone who's out of the workforce, I think it's typically women who are out of the workforce because they're the ones raising the children more often than not. And I know there's some stay-at-home dads probably on call, so not to discriminate, but in general terms. But I think anybody coming back into a workforce who's been out of it for 10 or 15 years is going to have low confidence. You're going to wonder. You're going to have that imposter syndrome. So I think from the female point of view, it's a great way of getting back in. In terms of why I think the satisfaction levels have lowered, I'm not sure. It's anyone's guess. It could be a case that, cost of living is having an effect on that. Geopolitical events are having an effect on people's moods. It's possibly things outside of our control, but that have a bearing on us as individuals. We're only human. But I'm not a psychologist, but that'd be just maybe an opinion about why that might be happening.
Yeah, because in general, rates of pay are going up. I'm going to come to that now, but I suppose it's people's perception of what they're worth, and that's another element of it too. And I agree. There's lots of other factors when people are filling out these surveys. It's not their personal as well as their career, professional mood might be affecting the scoring too. But I suppose overall pay is going up, and we're going to touch on that now, Jimmy. Pay, because I feel like when you get any report, particularly annual report, and the accountants would know that you go directly to the director's remuneration page to find out what's going on there before you read the results of the company itself. But let's just maybe have a chat about pay and what's happening there in that regard.
Yeah, so average daily rates across all industries are up. So the average daily rate at the moment is €571 in 2024. If we could jump into that a little bit further, and I mentioned project and gig. So there was about 80, I can't remember the figure off the top of my head, but it was maybe about 85% of the respondents identified as a project worker. So they're working with one client for a particular period of time, looking at a project, and 15% class themselves as doing a gig or a task. Now, anyone on the call here could be doing a project work, 4 days a week, would be doing a gig stroke task piece of work 1 day a week for a short period of time. But the interesting piece was when you're doing the project work, the average daily rate was €603, but when you're doing the task or gig based work, it was 542. Now we're still talking about professionals. The report, actually, which you get on Ireland's projecteconomy.ie, has a breakdown of contractors and all the daily rates, the average daily rates in all the different sectors. But I suppose for people on the call, I'd always say, refer back to Paul. One of the things we found over the years is people might see a certain industry has an average rate of X, but actually your individual skill set, you might actually be entitled to a higher rate because there's a shortage of that skill, or actually you might be at a lower rate because your skills or experience. So I think using a group like AuxiliaGroup to guide you in terms of what the market price is very smart, especially if you're coming into this and you're only in your first couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, very good. And I know, you, like as you said, Jimmy, there's very detailed rates across sectors, age profile. So there's an abundance of stuff on rates that we'd refer people to, so they can drill in. So depending on your age profile, your gender, sector that you're in, you can drill right down into what those rate drivers are. I think we have to remember, and I suppose AuxiliaGroup, our people are people that have operated at a very senior level in organizations. So these are averages rather than, guides specifically to what the market rate might be. And a lot of our people would be operating at maybe a slightly higher level than that, but it is useful to know. You touched on gender there, Jimmy, and like there seems to be some great news here for female contractors, in terms of, I suppose, growth in the number of contractors, closing in terms of the gap as well on the gender pay gap, which again is good news. There's still a gap, but it is closing, it would appear.
Yeah, look, I think the first thing is the numbers. Like it's been fairly steady over the last 4 years in terms of it's roughly 3/4 are men and 1/4 are women. But this year, the females come in at 27%, up from 24%. So a small increase, but we really want to see that we really want to see that growing. Everyone wants to see that growing, and you've got to wonder like why is that? And again, it's anyone's guess. I mentioned already that any of the females working in this sector enjoy the work. 84% said they were satisfied with the type of work they were doing, and they're generally happier than their male counterparts. You touched on the pay gap. So the gender pay gap in Ireland is 9.6%. 2 years ago in this report, the gender pay gap was about 17%, and at the time, the gender pay gap in Ireland was 20-something%. So it was smaller. Now the gender pay gap in the country has dropped to 9.6% in the employment sector. But this year, it's 5.5%. In the contracting sector. So we're getting much closer to parity. There's still more to do, but I think it's really, really positive from that point of view. And I think it comes back to that piece of a confidence issue on one hand, but also I think what's happening in the wider world and the value we need to place on all people around the table. And that actually shows in the daily rates. Although the daily rates are up across the board, couple of industries are down actually, but overall across the board they're up. The average daily rate for men actually fell by 0.5% in 2020, between 2023's report and 2024's report, but the rates for females increased by 6% in the same period. So that's really positive news. I remember Andrew Burke saying, I think at the launch 2 years ago, someone asked him the question, like, why do you think that is? He says, I just think the women need to go in and ask for more money, just have the confidence to do it because they've got the knowledge, so I think that was a really good piece of advice. And actually, if you're online and you're female and you're in your 50s, have a look around because you're earning 8% more than men in their 50s. So there's a reverse gender pay gap when you look at the 50 to 59-year-olds. So look, I think there's some really, really interesting stuff coming out of it. I think what we're doing is we're looking at a sector or an industry that has together is recognizing the value that the people bring, the experience and the skills, and that whole piece about gender and age we'll see as well just starts to level out and dissipate.
Yeah, no, that's good, Jimmy. And I'd like to see the gap closing, as you said. There's still a bit more work to do. I have, I suppose, an anecdote there that in preparation for this, it struck a chord with me when we talk about this, is that, we typically try and give our clients maybe 2 or 3 options of people that would be suitable with the skills to deliver on roles and jobs. And we had a particular 12-month contract with a client, and we presented 3 candidates, 2 male, 1 female. And the female candidate had been out of work for probably 18 months. Now, very busy doing lots of other things in terms of personal education and voluntary work, but was ready to come back in. And I suppose the company chose that individual. All 3 people were very capable of delivering, but they chose because they felt that individual was fresher. And the other 2 gentlemen had come out of, M&A acquisition transactions, if you like, and were probably maybe a bit tired, maybe coming out of it. But anyway, they chose this particular lady, so it just shows as well. I think in employment, gaps in CVs can be seen as oh, what happened there? Why are they out of work, etc. Whereas in the contracting world, it's more accepted that you can have a downtime and then come back in. So I suppose that was a real lesson for me there, that downtime is good, and we'll talk about burnout in a while. And not only did that person go in, they went in, and within 4 months they'd really done an excellent job, and they were really bringing strong experience to the role, to the extent that the client came back to us and said, here, look, I know we have a contracted rate, however, we'd like to put an additional 10k on the bill for this month for this individual, because they've done such an exceptional job. So I hadn't seen that before.
Well, what's that company? I'm going to get work with them.
No names, but I suppose what it shows was, if you really have to identify companies that value experience, and if you can do that, then you're in a really good place. And we've lots of clients like that do value that experience, but make sure that's valued when you go in. And when you're talking about taking on an engagement, make sure that you really feel they're just not looking someone to do or to get stuff done, that they're going to listen to you and going to value that experience that you're bringing. And that was I suppose, a financial reward, but it was recognizing the value that was being brought there. So I actually, I suppose, CEO of AuxiliaGroup, it made me exceptionally proud of all the delivery that we're doing for our clients out there, with all our associates and a lot of people on this call, that experience matters. And that was a really feel good for the individual, but for ourselves as well in that regard. And we'll see that, I suppose, as we look through here, Jimmy, in terms of age matters and that experience, and jumping along here, but one of the core messages that we always deliver out is that we're providing experience. So if people ask me what do we do? We provide experienced people into organizations. And there's an upside to that, because again, the survey from a rates perspective is telling us that the older you are, the more you earn. That's clearly coming out. And just by way of example, so for people that are 29 and below, the average daily rate is €390. 30 to 39, it goes to 453. 40 to 49, 584. 50 to 59, 607. And over 60, 695. So just under 700, again, averages. And that ranges in an annual salary from the 29 and below, from 87k up to 155k for the 60 and over. So experience does matter in this case, and I think people need to bear that in mind when they're out there and bringing that experience into organizations.
And also the highest job satisfaction. The over 60s, 89% of the over 60s had the highest job satisfaction, and the lowest levels of burnout and loneliness.
Yeah. So I often say to people, Jimmy, I'm 53 now, so I often say here, you're getting me in my best years, if you like, but maybe I have another 10 years to get to that, 63, and have that experience as well. There'll be more. Like, we're all learning every day. And it kind of brings me back to what's in the executive summary, Jimmy. Like, there's really, we all want to be good contractors, good consultants, good employees, good people, if you like, in terms of our delivery. And the report is kind of focused in the executive summary around, what makes a really good contractor and what makes a really good consultant. And there's various things called out. You might just maybe touch base and cover off those, just so our attendees here this morning get a flavour of what good looks like.
Look, I'd say to anyone online, have a read the executive summary, because I mean it's about, you should see yourself in it, and if you don't, they'd probably be the areas to work on. But the first one is highly educated, and I think that comes to skills and experience. 95% of people who were surveyed had a university degree or a professional qualification, and that gives you the confidence and the ability to do what you're going to do. Again, you're working in knowledge intensive industries. It's tech, it's pharma, it's engineering, it's finance, it's even in creative and media and other professional services, but that you're bringing a skill or an expertise that people might not have in-house, and skill and expertise actually doesn't always need to be something that you learned years and years and years ago and you're bringing to the table now. I know people who are now AI experts who are in their 50s because they've just totally and also AI experts who are in their 30s and 40s, but that just transcends across age because it's new and people are just diving into it. I think having to that point, having a growth mindset was one of them. You know, you choose work that develops experience, so you keep yourself at the forefront. You know, you can't keep relying on. I mean, I remember going to a seminar. It's a few years ago, but the person kept relying to these really old, outdated ways of doing business, writing letters and all this kind of stuff. You kind of go, look, that's, you know, you're kind of just, they were just getting as much mileage as they could out of a piece of work they did maybe 15, 20 years ago. That's not going to work anymore. There's things are happening so quickly. Getting out in front of people and building a track record, having an entrepreneurial disposition, um, you know, and that means that risk and uncertainty come with this type of way of doing work. I think it's brilliant. It's a brilliant way of doing work. Everyone here online is obviously doing it or thinking of doing it or just started doing it. But you have to have that mindset that goes, Jesus, I actually could go for a few weeks here without actually getting a piece of work, you know, and that's where your finances become really important in terms of how have you structured the pay based on the earnings that you're making. And you know, if you already want to work for 9 months of the year and take the summer off, well then take a smaller salary for the 9 months you're working, so that the 3 months you're not, you're still taking a salary from whatever the residue is, you know, and not getting corporation tax. So it's all these clever little planning things. Um, we talked about the age discrimination, and then there's also the piece. The last two were collaborative, team player, and comfortable with a nomadic lifestyle, which I thought was lovely language by the researchers. But it's nomadic in the sense that you're moving from client to client, but actually when like you guys here with Auxilia Group, when you have a community, it doesn't really feel nomadic. It feels like you have someone to lean on, someone to turn to, someone to ask a question of. So, I mean, you can get over that nomadic lifestyle piece by having a good network and a good community.
No, I think, you know, and that's, I suppose, these are characteristics, and hopefully, and I think a lot of the people on the call will see a lot of those in themselves, but maybe there's some tips in there in terms of that continued personal development. We're all trying to do that every day, you know, so it is, and it is what clients are valuing. Again, the over 60s, it's, you know, and our female, you know, to move away from that, I suppose, perceived bias, that, you know, that over 60s don't matter. They absolutely do. And, you know, in the employment world, discriminated against, but in the contracting world, highly valued. And equally female contributors, highly valued as well. So it's great to, I suppose, to see those attributes coming through there, and people can test themselves against those and see are they improving in all those areas, if you like. And I suppose ultimately, you know, that building up our own personal credibility, because from a referrals point of view, and our business is a referrals business, that you want the client to do one or two things. You either want them to call you back the next time they have another problem, or they want you to refer them to somebody else to say, here's the person that helped me with this, they'll be able to help you. And I suppose that's what we're looking for clients to do in terms of Auxilia Group, but individually as well. It's hugely important to us as contractors that we get that type of referral. Very good. Wellness, Jimmy, in the workplace, you know, it's a big topic. We see that with Pauline and the team here in terms of all our retained HR services clients, that they're focusing on the wellness of their employees, obviously from an attraction and retention perspective, if you like. And professional contractors are still expressing high levels of well-being, with only 24% experiencing loneliness, unchanged since 2023. And that burnout, I suppose, again, is also unchanged since 2023, with just 15% of contractors talking about burnout and experiencing burnout, which is low, but you know, still, you know, needs to be managed. You know, what's your view on that? And I've some experience myself just in terms of it, but I recall having 6 or 7 clients at the time when I was doing consulting myself, and you know, I suppose either through luck or good management, I never found a situation where they all came to me at 4 o'clock on a Friday going, here, Paul, I need this by 5 or 6 or over the weekend. It always just seemed to, you know, their challenges just seem to be able to manage it, if you like. But if you get yourself stuck down there, it can be a case that, you know, taking on too much is always the risk, and trying to balance that taking on too much with hey, I mightn't have the work in 3 months, you know. So that's always a challenge for people. What's your experience of that with your contractors that you work with?
Yeah, I think the good news is that people working in this self-employed space have less loneliness and less burnout than employees. You're never going to have, you know, you mentioned 24%, I think 15% were the figures. You're never going to have 0% loneliness and burnout. For me, I think, you know, it's a personal awareness of knowing when to stop, and understanding your personality. We bring our whole selves to work. You know, if we've got stuff happening in our personal lives, we bring that into work. If we've stuff happening in our work lives, we bring that home. And who are you deflecting onto at home or work because of something happening somewhere else? And I think that in itself is can be a huge trigger to what people feeling burned out, because they don't seem to get any respite. I think listening to you talking about your experience, Paul, I mean, one of the things I think that comes with experience, and age as well, is that ability to say no. And I think that's really important. You know, even just listening to you there saying, you know, 6 or 7 clients, you know, it was by the grace of God that they didn't all come to you at 4 o'clock on a Friday looking for something by 5. I say to the people on the call, you know, your experience, your skills, and anybody who's coming to you at 4 o'clock saying they need something by 5 o'clock, either A, doesn't value the strategic and high level skill you bring, um, uh, and if you've just started working with them and they're acting like that, it's time to put manners on them and say, hey, okay, we can get this done, but like it's 4 o'clock on a Friday, buddy. You know, so I think confident, and that confidence is hard, especially when you're starting off. And I think that can lead to the loneliness as well, that you kind of go, Jesus, I better say yes here, or I mightn't get paid, or I mightn't get the next gig. You know, so I think there's a whole awareness piece that there's probably hundreds and thousands of books written on personalities and all kinds of things. But yeah, I think it's just about having self-awareness. I think that's what it comes down to. No
Yeah.
psychologist, just an opinion.
Yeah, no, and again, I'm thinking back when I first went into contracting and consulting. I had a scenario, you know, when you work in a corporate, you know, you're told what time to be at the meeting room. Monday morning, 8 o'clock, we're having a meeting, and that's, you know, you're in, and you know, it's nearly dictated to you. But you know, to get a phone call from a client that says, "Hey, Paul, what's your schedule like? Let me know. Can we meet up in the next couple of days?" Very, very different environment. And now, you know, they're valuing your, you know, availability, they're valuing your experience, they want your time, and you know, and they know that you'll do your best to be with them as quickly as possible, depending on the urgency of the issue. But it's just a very different conversation for contractors in that regard, you know. And I suppose that was my own personal experience on it, you know. So balancing workload, important all. I suppose one of the benefits of being part of AuxiliaGroup is that if you're maxed out, you can say, hey, I can't help you. However, I'm with AuxiliaGroup, and the guys will have somebody else that will be able to equally, or even, I often say myself, you know, I have an accountant that's far better than me, that'll be able to help you out, you know. And that's, you know, that's the benefit of being in a group like this, to be able to refer the work in, make sure the client still gets a solution, but it doesn't necessarily have to be you if you're at capacity. And you know, I think we all try and do that in terms of helping clients anyway, you know.
With saying that, Paul, actually, I might actually just throw a question back at you, because there's a section in the results about clients. Now, God, I don't want to put you on the spot, and I hope you've read it, but there's a lot of feedback from the client companies, you know, so where you're going to be going into, you know, did you find what you're seeing talking to clients? Did the results resonate with you? Would you have a differing view, or did it align?
No, there was a few points in it, Jimmy, certainly, as I read through that, because obviously we're the middlemen in terms of the cog in the wheel, and you know, we've obviously the associates and their needs, and then we have the clients and their needs, and we're obviously trying to match and satisfy those. And you know, sitting in the middle of that is usually important to understand both sides for us. But you know, the good news here and what I'm seeing is that, you know, 41% of the companies expect their contract numbers to remain the same, and 48% of the companies expect their contract numbers to increase.
Yeah.
And also in terms of the coverage, whether the companies are multinational or whether they're domestic, that there's still and large or small, there's still a demand for contract resources right across the industry. So that's really positive. And the other thing, that this blended workforce is becoming far more common now, so it's not an employee all strategy, it's, there are companies now that are bringing in this experience. And with two experiences this week where, one of our team was helping a family business that was having a really difficult time, and lots of relationship challenges as well. And, our person went in and started engaging with the family members and so on. But I suppose quite quickly, and by Monday, the owner of the business rang our associate and said, "Hey, I don't know what you said or what you did, but the young fella's running around here mad for road to get stuff done." And what they were experiencing was that they saw that the owner of the business was reaching out and looking for help. And once they saw that they weren't shut down to a view or their own view, and that there was other professionals with lots of experience coming into the business, that it invigorated everyone else around them, And that's part of our role, is to do that knowledge transfer into other people, So that's when clients see that, then they start engaging in it more and more and more. And it does take time, but that's definitely a real positive that I picked out of it, if you like. And
there was a text box, like a free text box question in the client survey, in terms of why they take on, why they would use a company like Auxilia, or why they would use contractors. And there's some of the quotes are in the research if you want to read them. But when I was going down through them, they were given to me on a sheet of paper, just all grouped together, which was really handy. But I was able to go, that one is about, they literally covered 3 different areas. They covered skills transfer, so either not having the skills in-house, getting the project done, and then transferring the contractor's skill or the freelancer skill onto somebody who's in-house, who could then take over the running of that. There was about integration, so making sure that the person came in and understand the cultures and the values, because it's all very well saying we're going to get this project done, but you've got to, sometimes you bring in teams with you, internal teams with you, so understanding the cultures and the values of the business. And the other one then was around that headcount or cost saving. We want to maybe take a risk here. We want to innovate. We want to be agile. We want to try something new. We don't want to employ a whole team and then have a cost on our books. Or worse still, actually, when you think about the human cost, going, actually, this hasn't worked out after 6 or 12 months, and we're now letting you all go. And those people might have left really good jobs. So you bring the contractors, the associates, the consultants in to maybe get a new business line or a new business unit or a new idea up and running. And that just a different piece of research, actually also done by Professor Andrew Burke in the UK, showed that when any company engages about 11%, a minimum of 11% of their overall workforce are contingent, so not employees, so consultants, contractors, things like that, those companies grow faster, make more profit, and generate more net employment in the long term. So, really, really positive results coming out there.
Good signals, yeah. And I suppose for all of us, when we're out there, I suppose, on the biz dev trail, either personally or through AuxiliaGroup, and why are companies hiring contractors, if you like, is a really interesting piece for me as well. And the big ticket item was, again, giving them that flexibility and agility in terms of their cost base and in terms of their planning, with maybe on some uncertain outlooks, if you like. Again, access to skills that aren't available in-house, or the in-house skills are maxed out in terms of other projects. That obviously we're in a tight skills market, if you like. So again, going through the traditional recruitment route can take longer, and it again might not yield the experience or the type of person that you're looking for. And what was really interesting for me as well in this is that about 45% of the reason for taking the person in, it's nearly the candidate's preference. So when they're interviewing and they find the right person, they're going, okay, do you want to come on as a contractor, an employee, or do you just want to bill us? It's a contract employment. So it's the person being interviewed is nearly driving, how this is going to work from an operational, mechanics, and commercial perspective for them. So
that's out of the results, Paul. But would you see, like, do you see that mirrored in what you're doing month to month?
Yeah. Some companies they're just so challenged actually to bring in an employee you know, through their HR processes and everything else. So the operational manager or the person with responsibility for the project or the delivery of the outputs are just, you know, they just want the person and that experience baked in quickly. But if you go through the HR processes, it takes much longer. There's assessments and reference checks and criteria, where if they're coming to an organization like us and our people, you know, they can bring them in quickly. It's a contract, it's flexible, they can, you know, with short notice, you know, they can change it. So that's really attractive to them, particularly when they're running hard to get there fast, and you know they've really big deadlines in the organization. So yeah, absolutely, we're seeing that. Whereas, you know, we've nearly stopped engaging with some companies. They're excellent at onboarding contractors, and they're exceptionally poor at onboarding employees. So we're not even helping them in the employee side now, because it just doesn't work, you know. But the contract will work for them, you know, and it'll work for us and it'll work for our people, you know. I think the outlook as well, like there's huge positivity in the report as well. Was the other thing I saw, Jimmy, was that you know 63% of the client respondents expect the number of contract roles in the next 12 months to increase, you know. So that's really positive. And the other piece of survey that you know, when you were launching the project economy that I tuned into, was that our contractors and associates are sitting in the middle of organizations, and they're invariably in big change programs, and their outlook around the future is really strong as well, because of the fact that they're sitting in key strategic projects for companies, and that's why they're in there in the first place. So their outlook has improved a lot, and they're really confident about what the future holds here too, because they see the change that's going on in these companies. So I think, yeah, overall, it's fantastic. I'm conscious, Jimmy, you and I have been talking for a long time here, right? I haven't looked at the Q&A, and I'm just going to change the view here to.
We have no questions yet.
Gallery. So there's no questions, but if people want to use the hand up there, we can certainly bring you in, or if anybody has any questions or comments, please do. You know.
Just if people are thinking about a question or anything, and they're typing it, or they're raising their hand, just on the optimism piece, I think what's quite interesting is the younger the person, the more optimistic they are about contracting. You know, but actually, the younger they are, the less they're likely to stay as a contractor or a consultant in the longer term. So I think I'm not sure what drives that, but if you're over 50 or over 60, you don't feel as confident about the whole contracting sector into the future, but also you intend to stay doing it. You know, the majority of people intend to stay doing it. So I wonder, is that, you know, once you're into your mid 40s, you've probably been through, you know, late 40s, we've been through at least 2 recessions. You know, you've started to see things coming around. You know, look, it's not. People may be coming into the workforce in the last 2 years. They're in this upward trajectory, and they're feeling very positive about everything. And they haven't had that. They haven't experienced maybe that slump yet. So again, that's just an opinion, but it's an interesting observation nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that, you know, people that have been career contractors as well, Jimmy, you know, and they're maybe looking at their last 3 or 4 years, and they're kind of going, hey, I want to stick in with something now and just, you know, be part of something for the next 4 years, and, you know, see out my career, you know, have some sort of legacy in one organization rather than moving around different ones, having, you know, a CV about 5 pages long, but, you know, about 30 different contracting roles, if you like. So they've effectively been career contractors, and, you know, they're taking a different view, whereas a lot of other people are just coming out of, you know, maybe long corporate careers where they've spent 5-6 years in each company, and now they want to bring that collective experience around different organizations, you know. So if I don't see any questions coming through there, any hands up, guys? Yeah.
Rosemary has put something into the chat. I would just like to say the report is extremely useful, both in providing guidance on daily rates and confidence in the contracting environment, as is with this session. And thank you. Thanks, Rosemary. That's lovely.
Thanks, Rosemary.
Yeah.
Indeed. So if there's no questions, I'm just going to do a little update on AuxiliaGroup, just for everybody that joined us while I have you. If you bear with me for 1 minute, it'd be great. So I suppose from our perspective, you know, thank you first of all for joining and being valued associates of our organisation. We don't do enough of this, and every time I do it, I go, we have to do more, and we will be. and we'll bring Jimmy back around to talk about pension and tax planning at another stage later in the year. But you know, we're out there, we're continuing to try and grow the business, trying to win new clients and opportunities for our associates. That's our job. That's what we get out of bed for in the morning. JP Kennedy, who's on the call here, sitting left of my screen, I'm not sure what anyone else, but waving, is our head of business development. He's always free for a conversation on any opportunity or problems that need experienced solutions. And I suppose more than happy to take any referrals from associates at any stage. We do, just to remind you, have our referral scheme where we share some of the margin with our clients on successful contracting where referral has occurred. So please do remember that. And what you refer today will help someone else on this call or somebody else that's not on this call, and what somebody else referrals might help you as well. So thank you for that. We are also building out our capabilities in the whole area of ESG and sustainability. And, you know, I suppose talking about continuing your education and developing yourself and your expertise, that myself and a lot of the other directors in the team have embarked on B Corp training and, you know, increasing our knowledge around sustainability with a view to being able to bring offerings out into the market, if you like, because again, it's an area that's going to be here to stay and usually important to our clients. So you'll hear more about that. JP had a webinar there, which is available to everyone as well recently, just giving an introduction on that. So for further education, if people want to have a look at that, please do. Dara Golden, who's also on the call, has joined us as recruitment manager. So if you or any of your clients are looking for a recruitment solution, Dara will be able to help you with that. Give him a shout. He's more than happy to have that chat. And Claude, obviously, as always, is available to help anybody with any queries or questions that they might have. And finally, keep us updated on your own availability and your own experience and continued personal development as well through our associate portal, because that's what where we go to when we're looking for suitable candidates for particular roles that we have, if you like.
There is one question there, Paul, sorry. Yeah. Thanks, Eddie. Eddie's asked, do you have any data on percentage of the working month that is billed out versus time spent prospecting?
Yep, I do. So I'd seen that, so I was just going through the report. So there's been an upward trend in the amount of holiday time people are taking. In 2021, the self-employed took an average of 17 days off, but that's grown by 5 days. So an average of 22 days holidays per year in 2024, and across the year, an average of 9 days actually prospecting, looking for work. The average contract length was 14 months. Now it doesn't dive into whether that was 5 days a week, 14 months, or I was working with a client for 1 day a week for 14 months. But across the range, the average time spent with any one client was 14 months. 22 days holidays and 9 days looking for work.
Very good.
Good, yeah, and just by your own experience, Eddie, I was when I was contracting and consulting on a full-time basis, I was about 80% in delivery, and the other 20% are 1 day in 5, either off or meeting people, trying to get the next gig, if you like. And that was before I was aware of AuxiliaGroup, if you like. It was when I was out on my own. So I suppose just to finish off there, guys, if there's no further questions, I just want to thank you all again for joining us. A special thank you to Jimmy for also his insights, and Claudia for organising today, and Annalie. So thank you both. And, you know, I suppose congratulations, Jimmy, to yourself and everybody in Trinity in terms of what's an excellent report. I think our team here will get huge value out of reviewing it, and it's projecteconomy.ie, and it's very mobile and sustainable. I think I have last year's report here, hard copy, but it's now all online and you can move around it very easily. So enjoy the reading, folks, and if anybody has any questions at all, please do reach back to us. So thank you all so much. Really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, folks. Everybody. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.